These are the best days of our lives. Let's raise your glasses high. This one's for you tonight.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 10 of the SUR Files. Here on this Friday morning, May 22nd, 2026. Hope each and every single one of you are doing well. It's just truly the nefarious one, aka Joshie Lopez, coming to you from Winter Park, Florida, for the time being, hopefully. Anyways, I just want to say I hope you guys are in good spirits. Thanks again to each and every single one of you who continue to support this project, this concept, especially the podcast. Now we reached our first benchmark here of having 10 episodes, which is pretty cool. I did 500 episodes of my old wrestling podcast called the Hoots Podcast. I wrapped up that show in the middle of January of this year, and here we are heading into June. We're 10 episodes into this project. Things are going very, very well on our TikTok page, to the fact that we're now over 5,000 followers, which is awesome to see, and that we have 500 plus thousand likes, which is awesome. I'm really, really surprised with the level of notifications I get on my phone for this TikTok page, and I think I started that page probably before November, or it was either November or early December of last year, and I thought it would be a cool concept idea because I watched and listened to the How We Made Your Father podcast, which is a rewatch podcast for How I Met Your Mother. For those who don't know, How I Met Your Mother is my all-time favorite TV show. Maybe that or Friends, but for me, How I Met Your Mother has always been the main show for me in my life. So when I found out that Josh Radnor and Craig Thomas, the co-creator of the show with Carter Bays, was doing a rewatch podcast, I jumped all on it. And here we are about a couple years later, and I was just getting into contemplating what was next for me in my broadcasting career, and knowing that the end of the Who's podcast was around the corner, and I needed to take a step back from the wrestling content space outside of my main job, which is making transcripts for these wrestling shows. It just got to the point where, you know, I wanted to give, you know, like, try something in reality TV a chance. Like, you know, there's been a lot of things I've been juggling in my mind about what I want for myself in the next coming years. I always know in my heart that I want to be on a big platform, and that I want to be in entertainment in whatever avenue that is, whether it's recording a podcast like this, or be the one that types out the subtitles for a TV show, or being a writer, or making transcripts. I've always wanted to be in the entertainment field. So whether that was in wrestling, you know, I've contemplated, you know, before everything was settled down with my main choice of coming down here to Florida, I think, you know, this is a good time to reflect here, because this really ties in with the show and everything. Like, a big part of the SUR Files is just my journey into getting into a new phase of my life in a lot of ways, because coming down here to Florida, I moved down here for a reason, and that reason was to challenge myself and take a risk out of the bubble that I was in for the first 30 years of my life. You know, I'm very proud to say that I am from Chicago, but I wanted this challenge for myself more importantly, and that's the main reason why I came down here to move. At the same time, I had a juggling situation in my head. Did I want to go to Florida, or I wanted to go to California? And I had to weigh two different options, because where I at money wise, I couldn't afford the taxes right now, and rent out there in LA is not that great, but I know I would have more opportunities entertainment wise in my media career stuff if I were to move to California. So that's still an option for me down the road. And I think ultimately, if you ask me, Joshie, like where I would want to spend the rest of my life, it would probably be somewhere in California, to be honest with you. And this is the outlook that I've had for my life always. Like, I've always wanted to be on those bigger platforms, like playing music or, you know, being an announcer for the WWE. You know, I've always wanted to have that lifestyle. So being here in Florida is a big part of that first step of that process. And a lot of that has come with, you know, transitioning out of the Hoots podcast, going into this project. A lot of my downtime off air, guys, when I have downtime to myself, when I'm not like typing out the articles or spending most of my day putting out applications to find a fucking second job, you know, like, you know, the frustration I've been dealing with, all that stuff. A lot of that time has been really trying to build up this project. And, you know, for example, the Scandival book, I recorded that here. And I'm very proud of that. It's on our YouTube page. You guys should hit the like button and smash the subscribe button if you're watching this right now on YouTube. You can find it in our archives. I wrote an entire audiobook about Scandival on my own. And I'm very proud of that project. But I did that here, you know. That was one of the first things that I did after I moved down here, was finishing up that audiobook. And we published that. I thought it came out pretty good, just humbly speaking, but even more than that, just the number of likes and followers that we've gotten on TikTok is just crazy. Like, we're halfway past the park of where we need to be in order to start making money. They said on TikTok in the benchmark you need to hit is 10,000 followers on TikTok, and we're halfway there. Which is awesome, man. Like, if there was a possibility where I could start making money for doing this podcast and this project on TikTok, that'd be a blessing. It really would. But a lot of this is, and I'm trying to bring this full circle here as we start off here this week's podcast. It's just like, I'm loving what I'm doing now. It's a new topic for me. It's a new way to get into a new routine. Who knows what opportunities can present itself with doing a project like this. I hope all you fans of Bravo and like Vanderpump Rules and The Valley are enjoying what you have been seeing on our TikTok page and the different old scenes and stuff that I've been sharing on there, and what you've been hearing on the podcast as well. You know, sometimes here and there, I'll let you guys into my life, because just with my old podcast, this is also a live podcast. Like, I want you guys to get to know me. You know, I can come in here and press a record button, just go and say everything I want to say about the Valley. But I promise to make these monologues a little bit shorter. But I think it's important to build a connection and relationship with you guys, because you guys are giving me a chance in this platform to express my opinions about Vanderpump Rules and the Valley and stuff that we love about Bravo and reality TV, right? So I want to build this community with you guys, and I thank you guys again for this platform. It really means a lot to me. So, you know, who knows what the future looks like in the next coming years and stuff like that. I just know that being here in Florida is a great first step, and eventually I'll go to California, and the rest will be that. So I'm trying to look at things from a more optimistic point of view. I've been dealing with a lot of no's in my life over the last couple of months, and it's really like did a hindrance to my mental health and self-confidence. And I'm really trying to change my mindset, because I kind of internally struggle with self-doubt. And I think any of you guys deal with this as well. It's not just content creators. You know, we're humans. We all deal with self-doubt. But I deal with crippling self-doubt sometimes. And I try to remind myself that the best is yet to come. And I'm proud of the things that I have accomplished. Guys, this past weekend, I'm celebrating 5 months in Florida already. It's crazy. So it can be a lot worse, and I'm trying to make the best out of situations and doing my due diligence. You know, it just hasn't been easy. So, again, you guys don't know how much having this podcast means to me. So I want to build this connection with you guys, and let you guys into who I am behind the mic. So before we get into the Valley, I promised I was going to keep this monologue short, but we do have a little piece of audio that I wanted to share with you guys before we get into the Valley. the fortunate thing of recording this podcast is also the fact that it comes out at the same time as Scheana's podcast comes out. So on this week's edition of the Shenanigans podcast, Scheana had a guest from Below Deck. Her name was Hannah. I forgot her last name though. But Hannah was a guest with Scheana, and they ended up having a conversation where Hannah asked Scheana, where's her current status with her friendship with Stassi Schroeder. I think you guys will like this. I'm going to share a bit of this audio on the TikTok page a little later on today, and you guys can hear it first here on the podcast. So here's Scheana letting you all in on where things stand with her and Stassi, especially after that recent tirade Stassi went on Scheana on Vanderpump Villa a couple of weeks ago. So let's play this.
So it's hard because I'm like trying to work out what you've told me personally or what I've seen in the headline. I'm like, am I allowed to say this? So because you said that you saw Stassi and she was like, I would never do Vanderpump because I wouldn't film with Lisa.
Yeah.
But then now obviously she's...
Right. And I mean, maybe she just meant it in a sense of, I don't ever want to be like an employee for her again and get like scolded to. Like now on Vanderpump Villa, she's more of an equal.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe she meant it in that way, but I'm like, she said that to me. She said she would never have a sit down with her on Vanderpump Rules. Like, would never come back.
Are you still friends with Stassi?
So her and I were very good right up until my book came out. She had texted me a very nice happy birthday message for my 40th. I texted her on June 24th on her birthday. About a month later, my book came out. She had commented on my Instagram, congratulations on the book, all of that. I've been very supportive of all of her books, all of her ventures. And right around when the book came out, I sent her the PR package, and it was just crickets.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we just talked a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and I think it's sometimes hard for people who aren't in this industry to understand, because I saw some comments like on social media and it's like, well, Stassi isn't obligated to share her book and rah, rah, rah. And it's like, look, that's all well and good, but you need to understand, like, in our industry, we have to, like, support each other. Well, we don't have to, but it's like, if you're going to send me stuff to help you with your brand or your business or your book or whatever it is you're doing, and then I send you my stuff and you don't do that, it's not even about the, like, exposing it to her audience. It's about the, well, like, hey, girl, I've had your back and I've been there and supported you in your endeavors. So why are you not doing it to, like, for me?
Well, yeah, and even in her most recent book, she said very nice things about me, spoke very highly of my parenting and whatnot, and her and I texted and went back and forth about it, and after reading her third book, I had sent her a nice long apology about the whole Jax and Brittany wedding fiasco and all of that, because then Brittany came on my podcast and I gave her a platform to share her side of the story without hearing Stassi's. I just had the blind loyalty to Brittany.
Yeah.
What Brittany said was 100% truth. No one could tell me otherwise. And that caused a rift between Stassi and I. We were good after we had the babies. We were hanging out with them and whatnot, play dates, birthday parties, all the things. And after that podcast, it really ruined what we had rebuilt.
Yeah.
And I sent her a very long, nice apology, completely taking accountability, just saying where I messed up and where I was wrong. And reading that just reminded me that, you know, I needed to say this to her because I don't think I had before. We were good. So I guarantee she got a phone call. She knew she was going to be going on Vanderpump Villa and she couldn't be cool with me anymore.
All right, there you go. So that's from today's edition of Shenanigans. The podcast is out right now. All right, guys, we're going to take our first break here. And when we come back, we'll get to our weekly recaps of The Valley here on the SUR Files. This is episode 10. By the way, while you're listening and watching this, if you could do me a favor, please let me know in the comment section down below if you have any suggestions for the project itself. Would you like to see me eventually do a rewatch podcast where I start from the scratch and watch every episode and talk about it. This could become maybe more of a daily feature where I record more content during the week. I'm open to suggestions, not only for the podcast portion of it, but also on TikTok. If there's something you want to see on our TikTok page at SUR Files, let me know. Reaching out to all Vanderpump Rule fans in the Valley and Bravo universe. Let me know in the comment section down below any suggestions you have for this fun project that we have that's called the SUR Files. But like I said, we're going to take our first break here, and then when we come back, we'll get into episode 8, season 3 of the Valley, titled Misbehavior. Ladies and gentlemen, this one is, oh man, hopefully I don't pop a blood vessel. We'll be right back. I'm all right. Those two words are very interesting right there. I'm all right. I don't know if I'm all right. I know coming after this week's episode of The Valley, I want to send my thoughts and regards to Jason Caperna and his knee, torn ACL, meniscus, everything in between, man. I know this was taped last summer, so I think maybe Jason's at the back nine of this recovery process. But Jason, if you're listening or watching this, my man, I hope you have a speedy recovery. That did not look good. I was thinking about this before I pressed the record button. Like, you know, you hear this intro for The Valley each week. I'm all right. I don't know what's worse coming out of this episode. Like I said, is it the fact that Jason fucked up his knee, or is it my brain threshold watching the last 3 to 5 minutes of this week's episode? Look, I put it over. Last week's episode was fantastic, the best one this season. I put over Lala for, you know, having the 10 toes down mentality and putting Danny in his place and everything in between, right? This week, again, I enjoyed the episode. It was good. In this essence, though, I felt something's crossed the line, and I'm sorry. This is me coming out speaking from a personal point of view. I have a big no BS meter, and I have, when I see hypocrisy and double standards, I have to call it out. I did it in the wrestling space when it came to wrestling content creators talking out both sides of their ass. I have to do it here with this project as well, because I don't know about other Bravo content creators, but a lot of times when I listen to their podcasts and watch their shows on YouTube or whatever, there's a lot of agendas, and, you know, they like cherry pick their favorites and stuff like that. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not a team this or team that. Like, for example, with Sandoval, I was not team Ariana or team Sandoval. I just do not do that stuff. I really don't. There's 3 particular parts that I want to hit in our review of The Valley this week. First and foremost, we're going to get into what everybody's talking about with Danny and Lala and Nia, and we'll get into that in a couple seconds. Don't worry. The second part of this is the Jax Taylor of it all, and what Brittany said. That was one of the first things that set me off. And then lastly, when we'll tie it all together, is Lala and the pot stirring stuff that I thought she was past at this point from Vanderpump Rules. So in this review of The Valley this week, we're also going to get, like I do each week, I believe that playing audio context from the Valley After Show podcast is very important. I believe this as just a content creator, and I believe that context is key. I can come in here and share my opinions, but I also believe in substance and nuance, and I think, to be fair to the cast members of this show, that we hear from them themselves. That's why that I share a piece of audio from that podcast each and every single week, and we're going to do that again for this week's episode as well, because the title of this week's episode was called Misbehavior. And you guys see the thumbnail of this week's podcast. Yes, it's inspired by Mean Girls. I want to go about this as calm as I can because I want to have a productive conversation here. But the subject matter is very, very triggering for a lot of people. And I want to make this very, very clear before I say anything else. I do not condone one thing Daniel Bucco has done in the last couple episodes of The Valley, or anything he said to Lala or Nia in these last 2 episodes. I don't condone the tone that he carried himself with. I don't condone the drinking that he's been partaking in. I don't condone the snippiness that he was showing towards his wife. I don't condone the way he was poking fun at Lala's triggeredness. I do not condone that stuff. Okay? Also, I could look at Daniel as a person and as a human being and give the guy grace when he takes accountability for his mistakes. Now, there's 2 different things. I could hold somebody to a standard and tell them that what they're doing is wrong, but I also could look at the human being and knowing that there's 2 different sides. Obviously, Danny has a dark side to him when he starts drinking. When he's sober, and for the times I've watched him on the show over these last 3 seasons, he comes off like a really good guy, a guy that you want to hang out with. I know that he's a great father, and he put out this statement this week, a long statement apologizing to Nia and expressing the struggles that he's been dealing with internally. And again, even he said in his apology letter this week to Nia that there's no excuse for his behavior. Just because you have 4 kids doesn't mean you need to start going on benders and treating your wife like shit. Now, what I'm not going to do on this podcast is come in here and start defaming a man's character and his marriage, because I'm not in his marriage. I've never been married, and it's not my place to speak on someone's marriage. I know Lala, when I watched What Happens Live last week, and said that she wishes that that Nia left Danny and that she can't stand him. That's her opinion. Also, mind you, that Lala hasn't been married either, but that's neither here or there. So I felt it was important to come in here and express the fact that I acknowledge what everyone's saying, that how he's been carrying himself the last 2 episodes, and just the season as a whole, he's been carrying himself in a jackassian manner. And I don't disagree with you. I was ripping him and defending him in a way in the beginning episodes of the season where it was obviously shown that there's miscommunication between him and Nia, and she was feeling burnt out with the stress of having postpartum and having 4 kids and everything in between, right? So here we are in this San Diego trip. I'm trying to be balanced here because last week I went off on the dude, and rightfully so. You do not speak to women like that, let alone your wife, or poke fun at a woman that feels triggered in a situation. It's not for you to understand why she's triggered. She has every right to express herself. What I don't like, and what I didn't like on this week's episode, especially towards the end of it, is the fact that even after everything that happened, the next morning, we see this conversation with Danny and Lala, and Danny's saying that he apologized, and he's like, again, he was wrong for the tone that he used, and like I said, making fun of Lala being triggered and everything, and he's taking accountability, right? And then Lala's like, look, this is a judgment-free zone. She's like, I see you. She does mention that he needs to work on his drinking situation. So I will give credit where credit's due. But I have to call out hypocrisy. I just do. When somebody's trying to apologize to you and take accountability, and you look them straight in the eye, right, saying that there's no judgment here. And then there's the confessional where saying that she was a different person when she was drinking, and now she's 7 years sober, and that's awesome. By the way, for those who are listening or watching this episode of the SUR Files this week, and you guys think that I hate Lala or I dislike Lala or I'm saying anything bad about Lala this week, I'm not. But I had to call a spade a spade. I have to be honest. Especially the theme of what I've seen so far this season, and maybe it's just the way it's being edited. I could understand now why Danny told Bryce Sander of Entertainment Tonight why he thinks that Lala has taken the role of Jax when it comes to being the pot stirrer and the gossip monger and the guy and the person that's causing more of the drama that doesn't need to be said. So we go back to this, Danny's trying to apologize to Lala, and I thought they had a productive conversation. Then we have this brunch later on towards the end of the episode where Lala's trying to tell Kristen to stick her nose into Nia and Danny's marriage and say what's going on. Lala, Janet, anybody else in between, I would think Nia, of all people, would understand where the line needs to be drawn when it comes to Daniel and his drinking. They've been married for 10 years and they have 4 kids together. If Nia hasn't figured it out in a decade that, this is not sustainable and this is not what she wants for her life anymore, she has the right to acknowledge that for herself. She doesn't need Lala or Janet or Brittany or Kristen or Zack or anybody else on this freaking show to tell her otherwise. That's her decision. That's her prerogative. And then for Lala to tell Danny straight to his face, I'm not trying to be like Janet. This is a judgment-free zone. Bullshit! Because you're still talking about it behind his back. I thought you learned past this with Vanderpump Rules. And I know you mentioned on your podcast that you have a hard time shutting up sometimes, but there's a time and place for everything. He took the initiative to try to have accountability, to share that he felt bad about the way he was talking about her. And nobody on this show is morally correct, and nobody on this show has a track record of being 100% perfect, squeaky clean human being, all right? So I don't want to hear this nonsense of, there's no judgment here. I'm not, she's telling Kristen at the end of the episode, saying, I'm not trying to be the destroyer. I'm not trying to be like Janet. Then why? Not even just Danny, but other aspects of the cast in this entire season. I've seen multiple scenes on this season of The Valley where it's Lala, Janet, Michelle, and Brittany gossiping, giggling with each other, talking shit behind people's back like we're in the set of the fucking Mean Girls movie. If you guys are wondering why I use the Mean Girls movie set background for the thumbnail for the podcast this week, it's because of this. So I don't want to hear that, I'm not trying to be a destroyer. There's no judgment here when you try to have a forced interaction with Nia and Janet at Sosa's birthday party, and then you do it again in San Diego, trying to have Janet have another reconciliation with Nia the morning after everything Nia was going through with her husband, Dan, at the time. That's the time to, let's insert Janet in. And Lala's the puppet master. And she's going to have Michelle confront Jesse next week on the episode of The Valley. And then she's going to do this. And she's going to do that. And she's going to sit here with a straight face and say, I'm not trying to be the destroyer. Bullshit. I'm sorry. I had to call it out. That is 100% bullshit. You're going to say that this is a judgment-free zone here, and you understand the struggles of going in and out of drinking. And then you're still going to talk shit about the guy, demean his character as a man and as a father and a husband, and do that with a straight face. And then you're telling Kristen that she's wrong for sticking up for her friends, and that it's like, Kristen and Nia have an alliance. Excuse me? Kristen and Nia have an alliance, then please tell me, what in the blue hell are you, Janet, Michelle, and Brittany? Because to me, that looks like a fucking wrestling faction, if you want my honest opinion on the situation. So, the hypocrisy in the nature of what should have been more of a productive conversation. And again, I give credit where credit's due. She had every right to confront Daniel and how he was acting towards Nia. No harm, no foul. I put Lala over on the podcast last week. And I'm a big fan of hers. And I listen to her podcast every week. But that does not immune you from being called out for hypocrisy and being a pot stirrer. I had to call that stuff out. Don't sit here on worldwide television talking about people forming alliances when you've been doing that this entire fucking season. And the whole initial trailer where they're like, initial trailer for the season where she's like, I just want everybody to fucking get along. Doesn't seem like it to me, but that's just my opinion. I said we're going to play a piece of audio here, and we're going to. This first piece of audio that I'm going to play for you guys here today is hearing from the horse's mouth. There's been a lot of dialogue about what's going on with Danny and Nia's marriage. Obviously, Daniel, and rightfully so, has been highly criticized for his behavior towards Nia, and I don't disagree with what's been said towards Daniel. But I think it's also important to hear from both of them, and we're going to do that. So here's Danny and Nia display what happened in San Diego and where things stand with their marriage here. This is from the Valley's After Show podcast. Let's play the audio.
One thing with me and Daniel, in our relationship in general, yes, we have tense moments. Yes, we can be short with each other. We do resets often enough. A few days ago even, I told Kristen this, it's like a few months ago we had a big reset, and even just a few days ago we're like, oh, we both like sat down in a room, we had a babysitter so we could like step away together for the few moments we have together without kids crawling on us, and we both were like, this is hard again. Like, this is not easy right now, and like, what can we do to come back to like feeling that like in love feeling, and what can we do to like reset our relationship? So it's like, sometimes we're in this like beautiful season where like everything is really good, and sometimes it's not. And what people will see through this like window of time is like there were so many tense moments, and we were short with each other and had short fuses a lot. And that doesn't mean that we have a bad relationship. It just means that we were having hard moments, and we'll keep working on it because we're in it for the long run, and we've been together for a long time. We know that those moments don't define our entire relationship.
And this is why Luke and I look up to you guys as not only a married couple, but parents. As far as just dating me as a couple are concerned, like, just because they don't share it with the group doesn't mean they don't deal with it with themselves. I really try to model my relationship with Luke like that.
I don't know how anybody could look at that marriage, okay, because I think Nia's great, that marriage and that dynamic, and go, that's what I fucking want.
Doing a reset is something that's been really difficult for us. We talk, like, we know we need to be a better couple and be in love, whatever, but we're both so stubborn and tired and in our own feelings at times that we don't go, okay, let's sit and say it to each other and say it. And it's like we kind of just like brush it under the rug for a minute so we can have a really great day the next day. Yeah. But all of these communication styles. So anyone talk about Danny and Nia, you have to go through me first.
Kristen is very strong and vocal. Mm-hmm. And Luke, from, you know, what I know about him, he talks about the, you know, I want to get laid and whatnot. I do believe that he's like a good guy, right? And that you can reason with him. And it doesn't even matter if you say, well, I haven't been around them when Danny's drunk. It's like, well, from what I've seen so far, Danny and Nia at home, where he seems like he's got his wits about him, it's like my jaw's on the floor.
I'm getting a lot of heat for that.
There's just a lot on my shoulders.
My gosh, babe. Focus on what's most important. All the lovemaking on the calendar that I started putting together.
She is a mother who's holding the weight of the world, her family on her shoulders. Like, just talking about it, I have a lump in my throat.
No, it was a 45-minute conversation where he was extremely supportive, as he always is, when I'm having postpartum struggles, since after Asher, all the way through to now. He made a joke at the end, and everybody's like, all he wants to talk about is sex.
In that moment, I listened, and I was supportive, and all those things. An hour later, we were both joking around, and I started making those types of jokes.
That's always been our dynamic, and, like, he kind of jokes, and, like, I'm like, maybe, maybe not. And
people that are commenting on this are basing your entire relationship on a 2-minute clip.
Exactly.
So there's no reason to get worked up on it.
It sounds, but I'm like, come on, guys. Seriously, you're going to read that much into it? This is number 4. You think I haven't done this 3 other times? And I know exactly how to support my wife.
Luke is also kind of getting some backlash.
Yeah, it really makes me sad. As much as I appreciate support from postpartum moms, and I do see how it can be triggering for women.
Intimacy has been an issue for us, and I would like to start moving the direction of getting back to our own sex lives.
I hate that idea. I think that's what's happening is that women with kids or pregnant or that are going through postpartum right now are like, my husband would never. I would divorce him in a heartbeat. And I have my own feelings about it, but those are my feelings to be had. And really all it does is make me feel defensive for him.
You can't show everything, is all I'm going to say. There's more to the whole story. That's it.
I mean, that is what happened. I mean, I think that being shown in a clear light, but he is a really great dad, and he is supportive in that way.
Yeah.
And it just makes me feel very defensive, and I'm yelling at people online being like, he's a first-time dad too. He has no idea what he's doing, just like I don't.
Yeah.
So I wish people would just give him a little grace.
All right, so that's the first part here I want to play. The second part of this went into the part where Lala explained her side of being labeled triggered. I thought it'd be fair to play both sides of the story here, so we're not playing favorites here in the podcast. So you heard Danny and Nia's side, and then also a little bit from Kristen, but also let's get to the other side where Lala is explaining where she's come from on this week's episode of The Valley. So let's get back to the audio. Here we go.
I was trying to get ready for this drag queen pad, and I felt Nia had just thrown some things in a bag, and was also dealing with the judges. The combination of all that kind of got me in a little bit of a mood.
I've been working on this new version of myself where I'm not so much of a reactor. And so I made sure when I heard him speaking to Nia that way.
You're here to win. Yes. I'm here to win.
Okay.
So.
I'm doing my best.
Do you know what you're doing here?
I feel like you're being really critical, and it's really hard for me to function.
I made sure, are we in character right now? Or are we trying to be a dick?
Cover all of your facial hair.
Stop, dude.
When I continued hearing it, and I continued to hear Nia asking him to please stop talking to her that way, is when I went in.
What are you doing to me, dude? I look like a clown. Just know my skin tone.
How's it going? Stop being so mean to me.
She's hanging on by a thread, and she still is getting you ready to dress up like a woman. Yeah. Okay, just say thank you.
Yeah.
I was in the wrong for this, and should never have spoken to her in that tone, whether it was joking, whether it was a combination of multiple things. I always want to love, honor, and respect my wife. And I wasn't doing that in that moment.
Here's the thing. Danny can say it was a joke all day long, but when I left the room and he thought he was being unseen and unheard, he continued to talk that way. It was not a joke, because if it was a joke, your wife would be laughing.
I mean, I feel like it's Lala just sticking her nose into things that are not hers to jump into. The reality is we are a couple that have been together for a long time. We were both sleep deprived, freshly postpartum, all that. So yes, we have tense moments, but we also move past them. So it's not necessarily someone's place to jump in between our tense moments.
I was extremely triggered by just his tone of voice, what he was saying. I just didn't like it. And you're at my house where I'm staying, and you're in a common area. So that means that I can insert myself wherever I damn well
feel like it.
We know what we're doing in this relationship. We get it figured out, even if it's not perfect every time.
I think if anybody overheard however he was speaking to her, I think anybody would naturally go in and ask if everything's okay. It's like the normal thing to do.
The issue with all this is that Lala's new hanging out with us group. She's never been on a trip with us. She hasn't really been in this environment with Nia and Danny. So, like, for her to hear how they talk to each other, it's probably like, oh, what? But us, it's like, okay, exactly. That's Nia and Danny. They talk like that. We learned.
The fact that nobody else, felt the need to come in and step in or whatever, it didn't get too crazy enough for that. I think she saw a chance to insert herself into something and then throw that word out.
It's making me feel very uncomfortable the way you're talking to her. It's making me very triggered.
Why are you triggered?
Because the way you're speaking to her. It's not kind. I don't like it.
I will say, though, Lacey and Lala were getting me ready. I was in the gym, and I heard you yelling. I didn't know if you were in character. Like, you know what I mean?
And initially, I was.
Yeah, but, I can see where Lala was coming from because you don't know what certain people's triggers may be. Right. And it might be like raising your voice. Like, you don't know what Lala dealt with her previous relationship.
Even now, my heart is pounding because I have never had anybody mock
what you went through.
Yeah.
I'm going to be now Miss Triggered.
Wow. For us to have that interaction, I was shocked. I felt a little disoriented by it because being triggered by something means that it is taking you back to a place that is very familiar, and it's dark, and it's traumatic for you.
I never should have continued to do that. Obviously, I was just upset. I felt like she was coming in with an ulterior motive to stir the pot, and so I then wanted to say something back that, was hurtful or, attack back.
Well, if I was Danny, I would have told her to piss off. She doesn't know what's going on in my relationship. That would have been my response.
I don't always love how he responds, but I understand why when he's responding to people coming at him in a certain way that he feels attacked.
I did nothing but come in here and just observe, like I always do. I'm that annoying bitch who I see something, I say something. And many times I sit there and go, gosh, I'm actively telling myself to shut the up. I can't. It's in my DNA. But I still to this day do not regret stepping in. Nia thanked me, whether she meant that or not, I don't know. But come on, dog. At some point, you got to look in the mirror and say, we have to fix something.
All right. So those are first clips there. I wanted to share a little bit of substance audio content there here for SUR Files. All right. Let's get to the second part of this review here. There's a couple other things I wanted to mention that stood out to me along the way. They had this pageant where the guys were being the girls and they're being up dressed in drag. We get the flashback of Schwartz in drag and just being the ugliest girl of all time. And, the part where it goes back to when they had the Katie and Tom bridal shower and stuff like bachelor trip, and Sandoval kicks the door and you're like, look at him, he looks like a fucking battered wife. Look at him, he looks like a battered wife. So that was a funny flashback. Zack in drag was pretty funny, using the big tits, fake tits that Brittany gave him. Luke was pretty funny in the female chick outfit too. Also, Jesse, I thought for a moment he was gonna mess up his ankles walking in those high heel shoes or whatever he was walking on. That one was pretty funny to me. So the pageant part of it was pretty funny. Again, I felt bad for Jason with the whole messing up his knee up playing basketball like that. That kind of gets me nervous because I just turned 32 a couple weeks ago, and I always wonder about that if I were invited to play basketball with friends or play a Thanksgiving turkey bowl football game, something like that. When I mess up my knees like that or shoulders, since I'm getting older now, it's just it's wild. So those were a couple other initial takeaways that I wanted to share here. But the next part here is going to be interesting because this one may be even more controversial than what I just talked about with the Danny, Lala, and Nia stuff. And we're going to be talking about Jax here because I want to put him over and I want to send him my positive regards. This week on his Instagram page, he wrote this. This week has been a full circle moment for me. Late last summer, I checked myself into treatment for 90 days to focus on my recovery and mental health. This week, I came back as an alumni for their 5K run in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month. This journey hasn't been easy, but it's been worth it, and I'm very grateful to be celebrating 1.5 years sober this week. I want to be coming on here on behalf of myself and Matt and the SUR Files as a whole and say that we are more than elated and so glad to hear about that and hear what's going on with Jax's sobriety journey. He's not perfect. He's not a saint. And he'll own up to it. And he's owned up to it. I see some of the cameo videos that they share on TikTok of him where he says cameos to fans. And he owns up to his mistakes. And I do see a different side of him now than the last time I saw him on TV. And I like Jax. You know, when you're watching a show on television, sometimes you tend to forget that these people are real people and they have real emotions just like you and I. And I like to, you know, times with these, like I could balance the Jax I see on my television and who Jason Couchie is as a person. I don't know him. I never met Jason Couchie in my life in person. I don't know him on a personal level, so it's not for me to speak on his character like that. You know what I mean? So knowing what he's gone through and him owning up to his addiction problems and putting the work, actually putting in the work, I'm proud of the guy. I really am. I really am. And I mentioned this before on the podcast that I'm a fan of his A Mind of a Man podcast. I listened to that a lot. He went on a hiatus about probably right before I moved here to Florida. And I'm a big fan of Jax now. I really am. And to see and hear the words that came out of Brittany's mouth this week on the Valley, this is one of the things that really, really set me off because, like, there's only so much you can do as a human when you're trying to take control of your life and atone for your sins and be accountable and stuff like that. And even this situation with Jax being a father now, and, you know, everybody knows the whole situation with Cruz. For her to say on worldwide television that one of the main reasons why her son is coming out of his shell is because Jax is not in the house anymore is a slap in the face. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care if they hate each other's guts. I really don't. It's not my place to speak on their marriage or their divorce or where things stand with that. That's none of my business. That's nobody's business. But what I will say is that's uncalled for and that's freaking ridiculous. Because even from the times he was on the Valley, they've always showed how much he cared about Cruz and how much Cruz lights up when he hangs out with him. And you see it in the pictures that Jax shares on his Instagram. So to even say that is just bullshit. Just to continue knocking out. Like, that's one of the reasons why that last 3 to 5 minutes of the episode of The Valley this week really pissed me off, because it's just like, okay, we have 4 people shit talking a guy that they supposedly don't care about anymore. They say they don't need him on the show anymore. They're discrediting his name. Lala's doing the whole narcissist routine, because that's her go-to things on these TV shows. I'm triggered and narcissist. Triggered narcissist. Take a shot every time Lala says narcissist and triggered on a reality TV show. And again, before people start freaking out, I'm not judging her for feeling that way. I'm just pointing it out. She says it awfully a lot, and that's her go-to words when it comes to having these type of conversations. Anyways, let's get back on track here. So they're all gossiping about Jax, right? Like, They don't need him. Blah 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 blah. But for Brittany to say that, that did not sit right with me at all. That was disgusting. And Jax has done a great job. 1.5 years being sober, that's awesome, man. I admire anybody that chooses to have the power to go through a sobriety journey like this. I'm straight edge, for those who are wondering. I have never done drugs, nor do I partake in heavy binging of drinking or anything like that. I'm straight edge. I don't believe in it. I know that it brings out the worst of the people I've seen in my life growing up. And it's not the life that I want for myself, and it's not healthy for you too, also. So anytime I hear stories about sobriety and people are doing it for the right reasons, I admire them. And I have a lot of respect, not only for Jax, but also Lala too. Lala just celebrated 7 years of sobriety last year. That's awesome, But even for him, man, like there has to be a limit when you still have people talking shit about you. And I don't know how much restraint Jax has at times, but like I can understand if he got fucking pissed or or whatever. Like to hear that on worldwide television that you're the main cause for your kid hiding behind the show and not being able to express his excitement because he's not living in the same house with you anymore. I don't know. I wouldn't have done that. Even if I was in a bitter divorce with my partner, I would not degrade the father of my child like that on worldwide television. Or let me flip the script because I don't float that way. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I would not degrade the mother of my child on worldwide television like that. I would not do that at all. That did not sit well with me. Also, another thing that did not sit with me, if we get to this third part here, is the high school-esque nature of Lala, Janet, Michelle, and Brittany. And then, good thing for Zack, and I mentioned that in my TikTok review this week, that I felt that Zack was the MVP this week because he had the balls to call Brittany out. And for the fact that she doesn't like Nia. And it read all over her face how defensive she got so quickly about it. So you want Nia and Danny to feel the wrath of the Bravo fans like Jax did because they choose to handle their major issues privately behind doors. Brittany, it was your choice to air the darkness in season 2. Nobody told you that you had to do that. Nobody told you that. So, again, even for someone like myself that's never been married, I don't want to come on here and put my shoes where it doesn't belong. I've never been married. It's not my place to speak on another person's marriage. It's not right. And then she, I put my whole life on screen and they don't have to. Okay. I think Nia and Danny have been more open, vulnerable, showcasing the issues that they've been having in their marriage than they've been the entire time they've been on the show this season. And this is not just a new thing because Lala confronted, this big confrontation that Lala had with Danny in San Diego is finally showcasing the bad side of Danny and Nia's marriage or whatever. Guys, they've been talking about miscommunication problems the entire fucking season. And again, just with any other relationship, it's not always rainbows and butterflies. So, to see how defensive Brittany got when Zack called her out on it, I was glad to see because I'm glad somebody finally said it. As much as I enjoy Brittany and her sparkle and how witty she is, and she's a great mother and she's again, super funny and somebody you want to hang out with, and she's the glue of the group, and she brings people in, and she's a great person. I am not knocking Brittany as a human being, but it read all over her face that it set her off, because there is truth in that. You can see in her expressions when she nods her head when Lala goes off on Danny and Nia in the after shows. You can see it in the comments in the reunion when she nods her head and she stays quiet when Janet and Jason were going off on Danny and Nia. I would like to think now that we're past the filming part that I would hope that Brittany and Nia have actually had a real conversation with each other about the situation. And I hope it's a conversation that's brought up with the remaining episodes that we have left of this season of The Valley. I don't know how many episodes we're having this season of The Valley, but nonetheless, it was so written in her face how like defensive she got. So good on Zack for having the balls to point that out. So I'll say that. And then this again, Lala. Oh, you know what? Let me add more fuel to the fire for the friction with Danny and Nia by sending in Kristen to confront Danny on his real issues. Lala, Janet, Michelle, Brittany, everybody else in between. Like I said earlier in this podcast, I would think Nia, his wife, would know what the problems are more than you. To say that she's delusional or implying that, or she puts a blind eye to his behavior because they are faith-based and they believe in religion, and you just think that she just kowtows to him because they're Christian. They're a Christian couple. Like, what are we doing here, guys? Are we in high school? Because I know Janet is trying her best to find her footing back in a group where not everybody wants to rip her head off. And I feel like a lot of the conversations she's been having are trying to come from a genuine place. And I like Janet to a certain extent. But this Lala inclusion is just feeding more into this high school gossip mongering bullshit that I just can't stand. Don't sit here with a straight face and tell somebody that, hey, this is a judgment-free zone and I'm not trying to be like Janet and destroy your marriage or cause friction in your friendships and stuff like that. And then send in a close friend that's really close to you and Kristen to try to bring up more conversations that don't need to be brought up anymore. Danny went up straight to you face to face, Lala, to say that I'm sorry and I shouldn't have done that. But you want to keep needling and keep this thing going and going. So congratulations, Lala. You are the new Janet of the Valley this week of the season. You are the new Janet of the Valley of the show. Congratulations. And on that note, that is my thoughts on this week's edition of The Valley, Season 3, Episode 8, titled Misbehavior. Love to get you guys' feedback on this week's episode of the SUR Files. Hit me up in the comment section down below. Make sure to hit the like button and smash the subscribe button on YouTube. That way you never miss an episode of the SUR Files. Also hit the bell notification. That way you get notified firsthand. And you guys can check out the release of these podcast episodes on there as well. Also, don't forget the SUR Files comes to you free of charge anywhere you get your podcast from. The home for the SUR Files is Odyssey. So thank you to the great folks at the Odyssey Creator Lab for having us on their platform. And also, make sure to follow us on TikTok at SUR Files. You can hit me up on X at the Hoots Podcast. I'm on Instagram at Josh Lopez Music. I just want to say, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. I'm going to be a little busy typing out some articles for wrestling over the next couple weeks. We have a pay-per-view called Clash in Italy that I'm excited for next Sunday, which is the 31st. Man, this is a long month. It feels like a long month, but I just want to say thank you for the support. It really means a lot to me. You guys have been very awesome with the feedback, especially on TikTok, and I'm proud of what we're accomplishing here with the podcast, and I hope you guys are enjoying it for the most part. So for everybody, I'm Joshie. This has been episode 10 of the SUR Files. Don't forget, folks, be the authentic product that is yourself. Remember, nobody dictates the pace of your life but yourself and the man upstairs. I'm Joshie. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and we'll catch y'all on the rebound next week here on the SUR Files. Peace.